Hello YouTube, this is Morbid Feast, and in this video I'm going to show you how to perform a clean install of Ubuntu, which is Gnome Ubuntu or Ubuntu Gnome 16.04. Whenever you pop in the USB drive or boot up a DVD, this is what you're going to see. So select your language and hit enter. Now once you go past that, you'll have the menu here for the main boot up. You can hit try Ubuntu Gnome without installing, install Ubuntu Gnome, check disk for defects, test memory, and boot from first hard disk. We're going to go to install Ubuntu Gnome. And I'll give you fair word of warning, it can take it a little while to actually finally start up the installer, so just be prepared for that. You might be sitting and chilling for a little bit until the installer fully loads. I know I had a lot of trouble shooting the Kubuntu video, which is the KDE Ubuntu version. So I'm really hoping Ubuntu goes a whole lot better than what Kubuntu did. So once the install comes up with your language selected, click continue. Now we're going to select download updates while installing Ubuntu Gnome and install third-party software for graphics and Wi-Fi hardware, flash, MP3, and other media. You don't have to do this, and if you don't have an active internet connection, you don't want to do this. But if you do have an active internet connection, I highly recommend that you do this. With those selected, click continue. Alright, I've already done several videos on doing the hard drive manually, so you can reference those videos, or you can reference the section under the primary clean install of Ubuntu that will walk you through the whole process using something else to do a manual configuration. So for this video I'm just going to use erase disk and install Ubuntu Gnome. Most are not going to use the manual configuration unless you want full control over how the hard drives are laid out, and basically if you're going to add more RAM and various other things, it's nice to do it yourself because then you know exactly how it's configured. And I almost always use something else and do my own configuration, but this is targeted more for beginners, so you're probably going to want to start using erase disk and install Ubuntu Gnome first before you start doing something else and setting up your own partitions. There's a lot of documentation out there to help you out. Plus, like I said, I have several videos for doing that, and the clean install of Ubuntu 16.04 will walk you through to something else to set up a manual configuration. So with that being said, we're going to use erase disk, so we're going to leave that selected and install Ubuntu Gnome, and then we're going to select use LVM with the new Ubuntu Gnome installation. Using LVM on the newer versions is a whole lot easier for logical volume management, and it makes it easier for adding and removing hard drives and various other things along those lines. So LVM comes in pretty darn handy. You don't have to do that by any means, but it does make it a whole lot simpler. The other thing I highly recommend is select encrypt new Ubuntu Gnome installation for security. You do not have to, but I highly recommend that, so you encrypt the entire hard drive. If you don't do this, then we'll have an option later to encrypt the home folder, so that is also another option. This just gives you better security and makes it a whole lot harder for somebody to steal your files off of your hard drive. Don't make the mistake of thinking that hackers can't hack Linux. Linux is now baked into Windows 10, and more specifically Ubuntu is built into Windows 10, so don't think for one second that you're not susceptible. Linux, all operating systems have vulnerabilities. All operating systems on all devices. So Linux is not immune to hackers, malware, viruses, all that stuff. So with that said, I still highly recommend encrypting your hard drive installation, as it makes it a whole lot harder for an attacker to steal your files and be able to just open them up. So with all your options set, click install now. My fish, I think, is showing signs of absolute insanity. He keeps swimming around in circles in the same spot in his fish bowl. It is a little glowfish that I named Flash. He is one of the electric yellow ones. Makes him look more of a chartreuse or fluorescent yellow or green. So kind of looks like a Sharpie marker went wild in a fish tank and started swimming around. One of the highlighters, a Sharpie highlighter, or whatever brand you prefer. So it can be kind of funny at times. Okay, and once you select your option, it's going to give you the right changes to disk. Basically, it's just going to spill out what it's going to do. Just click continue. It'll write the partition and the partition table and the partitions to the drive, and then it'll format out your root folder, or format out your primary partition that's going to be used for your installation, which will give you all of your file system and your hierarchical structure. Now you need to select your time zone. Most of the time it's really good about being able to select the time zone. If it doesn't have it in here, then you can try selecting as close as possible, but as long as you're on your time zone, you should be okay. Once your time zone's set, click continue. And then the keyboard layout, you can click here to detect keyboard layout. If this isn't correct, it does really good about auto detecting the keyboard. Some of the Delvik keyboards used to have issues, and now they're not so bad. It picks up pretty much most of the keyboards these days without too much trouble. You can click in here and start typing to test out the keyboard, and like I said, if it doesn't detect it here, you can click detect keyboard. It'll have you start typing, and based off of the characters you press, it will determine, or based off of the characters it receives, it'll determine what keyboard you have. So once your keyboard is selected, click continue. Now we got to tell it who we are. Basically, this is the very first account, and the one thing I try to always tell everybody with all versions of, or all flavors of Ubuntu Linux, your very first account, the first account you create on install, is your super user account. Don't give it an admin name, don't name it root, don't name it anything stupid like that, because that's stuff that attackers are going to target. They're going to go after default admin names. Don't even give it a name that even indicates that that is an admin account or a super user account. I know I just got through from saying that, so unfortunately I'm going to give it a name that gives no real indicator. I'm just going to use a generic name. In normal circumstances, you would want to put your name or your company name, whatever, and then your username. Now be very careful, because if you use your name right here and then you create your second account and just put in your name right here, sometimes it will display it by your name and not your username, and you're going to have a very, very hard time determining which one is your admin account or super user account and which one isn't. So definitely give it a different name. So for like your name, you can use a different name or something like that, or just use a username and make sure it goes into the username field as well. So that way your username setup will be pretty easy to distinguish. The problem with that is if that's the only one that's set up like that, then it'll also make it easier to determine what one is probably the super user account. So there's a lot of things you got to take into consideration. And then you can set the computer name. Remember, it's got to be small characters for first, and then you can go into capital letters afterwards. But it's not too bad. I'm just going to name this one CB Lab VM since it's a virtual machine and it's going to be deleted right after we're done with these videos anyway, so whatever. And now you got to set your password. This is where most people fail horridly, and I finally the other day actually saw a password that was really long, that was still kind of easy to guess, and it said guess my password. So if you're going to set a password that's long and it's called guess my password, guess what? It's going to get hacked pretty fast. Anything that is related to you, people close to you, friends, family members, any pets, you know, anything like that. Phone numbers, any numbers that are, you know, tied back to you, and you would be amazed the information people have about you that you don't know that they know. So you definitely want to use a password that is more of something that everybody wouldn't know, and don't use your social security number, and don't think for 1 second that somebody out there doesn't know what that is. Some really good hackers probably have your social security number if you're a target. If not, they could obtain it if they have to. And guess what? If they go crack your password, if they didn't have it, they do now. So definitely not a smart idea. Whoever you're banging or anything like that is not a smart idea for a password either, because that can be guessed too. So don't go that route. You want to go with something long and complex. By long and complex, I mean greater than 14 characters. So you'd be better off using a phrase or a sentence, and mix it up with uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and special characters. I know I just gave that big spiel, but I'm going to use a simple password because this is a VM. Do as I say, not as I do. Do not select login automatically at the bottom. This is another area so many people fail. Oh, I'm going to make this thing secure, and I'm going to put in a super hard to guess password, and I'm going to set login automatically. What did you just do? If you have login automatically enabled, all I have to do is turn your computer on and it puts in the password for me. So you just bypassed all security measures you just established in your freaking system to give somebody freaking access to all of your files and all of your shit. So all I got to do is pull up your web browser, and then I can go in and get all your passwords, your accounts, everything. Any important documentation you have, you just gave it all to me. So yeah, don't use login automatically. Encrypt my home folder. If you didn't encrypt the entire hard drive, you can select this, and after the install is finished, it's going to ask you for a passphrase. You'll put the passphrase in and then confirm the passphrase, and then from that point forward, whenever you boot in and log into your account, you'll have to put in that passphrase to access your personal files. So if you don't want to encrypt the entire hard drive, you can encrypt your home folder, which will encrypt your personal files and everything personal to that account, specific to that account, which will still give you a moderate means of security through encryption of just those files without encrypting the entire drive. Encrypting the entire drive can have a performance hit, but I would rather have a performance hit than a security hit, if you know what I mean. So with that being said, after you've selected encrypt my folder or not, and you have all the other information filled up appropriately, click continue. Now it's going to copy over the files to the system, and once it's done, it'll want to reboot and it'll be ready for the first boot up. The next video will be for navigating Ubuntu and also setting up your actual user account instead of your super user account, so you can add a second account and be able to get on the system and tootle around. This part's going to take a little while, so I'll see you all shortly. Alright, we're back and now it's ready to restart. So all you got to do is click restart now. And it'll come up to a point asking you to remove your DVD. You can pop out the USB drive or whatever at that point and then hit enter. Now we can sign in for the first time. Getting started, Gnome Help. This is the full Gnome DTE or desktop environment. And it is a very, very stable release of Ubuntu Linux. This information's out there for absolutely everybody. As always, watch, like, and share. Have yourselves a great day.